Hello, and welcome to this special edition of Behind the Badge. I'm Christy Hopkins, Director of Media and Public Relations for the Harford County Sheriff's Office. The Office of the Sheriff has been an American institution since 1634. The first sheriff of Harford County was appointed in 1774, and the position became an elected one 3 years later. And while our commitment to courage, honor, and integrity has endured through those early years, lots of other things like equipment, training, facilities have changed dramatically. We're delighted to welcome 4 members of our Harford County Sheriff's Office family today to talk about the changes, developments, and improvements they've seen in their years of serving the Harford County citizens. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to start with retired Major Doug Versey. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your career.
Well, I was hired on December 1st of 1980. I was in entrance level class EL5, and I retired as a major in 2014.
See a lot of changes during that time?
Whole lot of changes.
A lot of changes. So next we'll go to Lieutenant Parrish.
Hi, my name is Chris Parrish. I'm Lieutenant for the Harford County Sheriff's Office. I started EL 11 of July of 1990. It's just my 36th year.
36 years, and you are the longest serving deputy on staff right now. Do you know, is that the longest serving in all of our history, or are you
No,
holding
there's
that record right now?
No, there's people who've been here 44 years before they retired.
You trying to beat that record?
Negative.
No.
No.
And then we'll go to Lieutenant Underhill.
Hi, my name is Lieutenant Brandon Underhill. I started in February of 2001, so I'm in my 24th year now. I was in entrance level class 18 at the academy.
And DFC Roberts.
Yes, I started with corrections in 2016 in entrance level corrections 27, and then I switched over to law enforcement in 2019 for entrance level class of 34.
And you're not the only person on this panel that started their career in corrections and then came to law enforcement as well.
That's
Major
right.
Versey.
Yeah, I did. I was there in, like I said, December of 1980. I was there for a year, and then I lateraled over to the next academy class, which graduated in 82.
So we're really spanning a lot of different generations and different decades of serving in the community. And we really wanted to talk about what that looks like and what things were like in 1980 versus, 2025. Let's start with training. DFC Roberts, you are assigned to the training academy right now. Can you talk a little bit about what the law enforcement academy looks like?
Yeah, so Law Enforcement Academy now is actually 8 months. It is currently the longest span of what we're going through in the history with the agency. So they have a lot of hands-on training. They still get 2 weeks worth of firearms, 2 weeks of DTAC, 2 weeks of officer survival scenarios. They go through report writing, they go through TASER. So basically a lot of hands-on, but they also have a lot of classroom to include legal, traffic, any type of paperwork that might handle in the street.
And as the years kind of go forward and technology continues to advance, I can imagine that the academy will have to continue to evolve to stay up with that. So Lieutenant Parrish, can you talk a little bit about how long was your academy and what was that like for you?
Our academy was 6 months long. Upon graduation, we went to the road and had a short, or I think it was like a week, ride along, and then we were cut loose to go to the road.
On your own.
Yep.
On your own.
After about 7 days.
Do you look at now in your role as a lieutenant at the deputies that are coming out of the academy? How do you feel like they are better trained, different trained than when you went through?
The training has been pretty much the same as far as firearms, some of the law applications. The biggest thing I noticed today is there's a lot more training dealing with de-escalation, how to deal with emotionally disturbed people. We have what's called CISM, mental health awareness within our own profession. There's a high rate of suicide in our profession, and how to peer support dealing with mental health illness.
I think peer support's probably changed a lot over the years. Things that maybe when Major Versey was a new recruit, not something that was talked about as much.
Yeah, it was basically hazing back in my day. Yeah, it was not a lot of peer support. You sucked it up. That was how it was. There was none of the programs that you have today.
And we've certainly learned over time that there's different ways to be able to work with our employees to make sure that they're in a good state of mind. Can you talk a little bit about what we just heard, kind of what you think you see on the road now, a lot of like mental health and de-escalation. What would you say the number one call was when you started on the road?
Most of our calls for service were basically juvenile crimes. So it was a lot of
Be the same.
yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot of neighborhood fighting, some fireworks complaints. It was not, and I worked in Edgewood. It was not a lot of. If you got an armed robbery back then, that was something big. You probably got a bank robbery once or twice a year, and a homicide maybe once a year. So it was really just a juvenile nuisance crimes. There wasn't a lot to do with community policing back then. So really, you just, when you got out of your car to patrol on foot, I mean, there was no communications outside the car back then either. So you didn't stay out very long.
Well, that brings up a great example of something I want to talk about as well, is the radio system and the communication that you have now between each other. Do you want to talk a little bit, Lieutenant Underhill, about the communications right now that we see?
Sure. So it's an ongoing evolution of constantly trying to make sure that our technology is up to par and up to an industry standard. So currently what we have and what we're slowly rolling towards is a cellular-based system, so you can communicate with anybody anywhere as long as you're connected on the same digital frequency. When I started, it was you cross over a river one direction or the other, and you're not going to get very far where you can't communicate with anybody anymore. So we've had a lot of really significant improvements in the last couple of decades to make sure for critical incidents, things like that, that you need other people from other jurisdictions that are coming in. We need to all be able to communicate at a state, local, and federal level.
And getting out of your car with no radio or no communications, what was that like?
Well, it wasn't bad. I mean, you could contact you. We had a system they called the reach system. So they could basically type in the code for your car at dispatch, and our dispatch was actually at the sheriff's office too. There was no 911 center or any of that at that point.
You're older than 911.
I'm older than
right,
911 in Maryland.
Just want to make sure everybody was getting that.
I am. But they would hit a reach system where they would blow your horn in your car.
Oh.
And you would have to walk back to your car and then get on the radio and see what they wanted.
Talking about cars just real fast, rapid fire. What was the first car you were
I had
assigned?
a 1980 or 81 Chevy Caprice.
Things were different when I graduated. Deputies nowadays get brand new cars, all the bells and whistles, lasers and cameras and all that. When we graduated, we had to wait at least 6 to 9 months before we even got a car. And the car that we got was always a pool car with over 50,000 miles. My first car was probably a 87 Impala, something like that.
Yeah, and that's
Maybe you drove his car first.
well, that's how it was. You know, they were called pool cars then too. So somebody from all three shifts was assigned to it. Well, I won't jump ahead about. We only had one location that we worked out of, and if your car wasn't in and there wasn't an extra car out, you stood around and twiddled your thumbs until that person came in, so you could unload his stuff out of the car. You load your stuff in, and then you go.
And Lieutenant Underhill, what was your first car?
I had a 2001 Ford Crown Victoria, car 167.
A late 2000 Chevy Caprice.
And what about the lighting system? What were your lights like, Major Versi?
We had a red and a blue incandescent in the grill, and a clear square boxy bar light in the front on the top, and that was it.
Versus looking at the cars right now that we drive, DFC Roberts, that have LED lights and can you talk a little bit about what the lighting system is like now?
Well, I currently have an unmarked vehicle, so the lighting system is inside of the windshield and then in the back of the rear view window. And then it's actually encased throughout the lights in the front and the rear of the vehicle, so it's not as obvious, so to speak, that it's a marked car, but it is still.
So continuing on that theme of technology, really, because we're talking about just kind of how the radio system has improved over years and the lighting system in the cars. What do you think right now is the most impressive piece of technology that we're using?
There's two of them that I can think of right now. The first of which is the drone.
Drones.
It's a force multiplier. It's worth 10. It does the work of 10 or 20 deputies now in helping out with large scene searches and missing persons and fleeing and looting subjects, stuff like that. And then the other technology advance would be the LPR system, license plate readers. They provide a wealth of information. They solve a lot of crimes for us right now.
Do you have any other thoughts of being on the road right now, technology that you just feel very valuable?
I completely agree with drones. I never imagined 24 years ago that we would now, during my career, show up and, let's just send a drone up in the air and we'll just watch everything that way. We had an incident in a neighboring jurisdiction not long ago where it would have been an all-night incident. That's what we were all prepared for, and by sending a drone up, I was home in 2 hours. It's an incredible force multiplier.
It sounds like a lot for safety for all people involved, whether you're the
Absolutely.
officers or the people that are involved. And now, did you ever think that we would be researching drones as a first responder program and what that's going to look like in the next step of the future?
Yeah.
Major Verzi, no talk about drones when you were on the road?
Well, the military didn't even have them yet.
Is there one piece of equipment that you kind of look now what we have and you think that would have been really great to have had when you were on the road?
Yeah, and I think both of the things that Chris talked about, the drones, but also the ability to check criminal information from your vehicle. Mm-hmm. A lot of my career was in a covert capacity, and had we had drones back then, or the ability to run tags on a place that we were surveilling around the clock for a month at a time, it would have helped out a lot. Instead of writing it down, checking it later,
Let's talk a little bit about reports then. What was the report writing like?
Well, the report writing was with a pen. So it wasn't done on a computer. The average calls that I would get in Edgewood, you might get 5 calls a night. So there might have been 3 people down there, so 15 calls for service that you would get. And out of that, probably 2 or 3 where you would write a report.
Now pause on that. People working in Southern, he's talking about 15 calls in a night. How many would you say we have now?
Oh,
I used to know these numbers a lot better. Were you talking like midnight shift or evening shift, just for apples and apples?
I was on a shift that was called 5 to 1 back then.
Okay.
So yeah, it was shift 3.
Okay. I think evening shift is probably 60 or 70 calls for service on the average shift.
Sure.
Just out of the Southern Precinct.
Just for comparison. So when you would be ready to write your reports, you'd be taking notes by hand.
Well, yeah, you would go into the contact the complainant, and you'd have a little notepad, and you would write down, the basic information you needed for it, and then you come back into your car and wrote your narrative. You would turn it in at the end of your shift. Or, I don't know that this is done anymore either. You would actually do an investigation on that. Sometimes there's so many specialized units in the agency now that those reports go to somebody else, where you would do that yourself.
And everything now is done on the computer. Mm-hmm. You can do it right from your vehicle, so you're not necessarily having to go back into the precinct, which saves a lot of time for deputies. Can you talk a little bit about what you see in reports now?
So there's a lot more resources that guys have available to them, partly just from the technology of having a computer in your car that you can start running it. Everything is at your fingertips now. They have, everyone on the patrol side has an agency issued cell phone. So things like taking photos of a crime scene get uploaded within minutes. And so anybody around the agency who needs to see what are we looking at here, they can pull all that right up. Suspect information, being able to check other hotspots in the area and figure out who lives here, who might be somebody that we need to talk to about this. All that is right at their fingertips. It's interesting. He was talking about having a piece of paper and a pen when he'd show up. Now, as I was recently a patrol lieutenant for a while, and it took me a lot of getting used to watching body cam videos, which is another significant new tool that guys have. And I would watch them, instead of pulling out a pen and paper, they would pull out their agency cell phone, and that's what they would use, texting themselves to take notes on, which is hard for some of us to adapt to and get our heads around.
back to this special edition of Behind the Badge. So body cameras, that opens up a great discussion. DFC Roberts, when did body cameras come into play as when you were a deputy?
They came into play a couple years ago, so I was still new on the road. But, I mean, it's been a great tool since like I said, we can go back and review our calls for service. So if you think that you missed something, I was one that used your cell phone to take notes or a notepad, depending on who you were with and what the call for service was. But you can go back and you can review everything. You can listen to what you said, what the individual said. So it was, like I said, it's just a great tool.
There was a conversation outside of law enforcement that deputies weren't going to want body cameras. And I think we have proven that to be false time and time again.
Yeah.
You think they've been a great asset to your work?
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah, I used to work for the internal affairs, and when body cameras were first introduced, there was that concern by deputies. But the use of the body-worn cameras far outweigh clearing deputies of any wrongdoing, than they are used against any type of administrative sanctions against deputies.
So even you're talking about investigative on the road, how that's beneficial,
Yes.
but even investigations against our own personnel, that's been very beneficial as well.
99.9% of the time, the law enforcement officer are doing the right things.
Right thing. So I'm listening to you talk about you're writing your reports in your car, and I'm wondering, when you think about everything that they have in their car right now, Major Verzi, and all the different, it almost looks like an airplane cockpit, right? All the different things that have going on in comparison to what you had. Do you want to make a comparison between the two?
Well, when I came out, you had the radio and your lights and siren, and that was basically it. The reach that I talked about earlier was underneath the seat, and you would also have if they had to put out sensitive information, they would tell. There's two ways to do that. They would call you and tell you to go to 2B, which was a scrambler. So if if people who had monitors, it would sound like mwop, 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 mwop. That's what it would sound like. But you'd have to reach under the seat, turn it to 2B, and it would come through clear. The other way was they would tell you 1021 or 1088. There's no 1088s out there anymore. That was a payphone. Give us 1088. Give me a number I can call you at a payphone. You can't find a payphone anywhere.
So you would be called to find a payphone to then make contact back with the office?
Yes,
or?
yes.
Yeah, when we started, there were no cell phones. I remember when pagers first came out, we thought that was a great leap in technology. I remember typing search warrants on typewriters, and one of the best inventions was when you could hit that erase key and it would go over the word and you could retype it. You didn't have to throw all your document away. Now with word processing, completing forms and reports are so much easier.
We had when I started, we had community policing stations, and it was like convenience stores, things like that around the county. And we identified them over the radio by the last four numbers of the phone number to that location. So we talk about, maybe over 9800, and it was a store that was in that post, and they'd have sometimes a podium and a phone and some reports that, if you needed to just stand at a little podium, grab a little cup of coffee, and you could write your report standing there.
And DFC Roberts, I can tell by your face, you're thinking.
I mean, obviously I grew up with technology, so I would have no idea what I would do if it wasn't so simple as just changing to a different radio channel, whether it's on your portable radio that's attached to you, or whether you're in car and or just calling the individual on the cell phone. So
what type of equipment were you issued?
I was issued a 6-shot revolver, a D-cell Kel-Lite, a 110 Instamatic camera with flash bulbs on top.
You are old.
Yep. And you got free pens back then. That was basically it. Yeah.
Lieutenant Parrish, what were you issued?
Very similar. I remember having Polaroids. They were around. Everything else was pretty much the same as Major Verzi said.
Yeah, and when I first came out, you weren't issued a ballistic vest. If you wanted one, you bought your own.
Oh, wow. That seems unheard of now. People
yeah.
would be hard to believe that's true. So talk to me a little bit now. People are coming out of the academy. What is the equipment that they are issued?
So you have obviously your handgun, shotgun rifle, you have a taser, an asp-baton, you have a body-worn camera, you have your handcuffs, you have your vest. Oh gosh. I feel like I'm missing.
Say taser.
Yes.
Pepper spray.
Yeah, pepper spray. You have more than enough items to get you plus some, and that doesn't even cover everything that comes with the vehicle as well, because there's so many items that you are mandatory to have inside of your vehicle as well.
Wow. I've saw the evolution too of the gun belts, right? And all of the things everyone was trying to put all the way around their gun belt. And then we went to the outer carriers because it just made a lot more sense with the amount of equipment that you're responsible for carrying versus maybe what Major Verzi was responsible for carrying.
Yes.
So when you came on, where were you first assigned?
I was first assigned to Southern Precinct 4 to 12 shift.
And that is where everybody knows, probably in Edgewood.
It is in Edgewood.
On Pulaski Highway, built as a state-of-the-art building and opened probably like 2012, 2013, around there, 2011.
Something
It
like
was
that.
recent.
Prior to that, who wants to talk about the old Southern Precinct?
So I worked out of the old precinct on when I started in 2001. I worked out of the Edgewood precinct on primarily midnight shift for about 5 years. It was an old, I think it was a 7-Eleven building originally that was then purchased and converted to our uses. We didn't have any holding cells. We had a small deputy's room with, at the time I was there, maybe 4 computers in it. We had a duty officer station, a couple of other offices. It was very small. A very small little conference room if you needed any additional space, but we outgrew it the day we moved into it. So we worked out of there, folks worked out of there for a couple of decades, a couple of generations of policing. So it was challenging, but it was all we knew. So we made it work, and you needed to wait for a computer, and so you waited for a computer, and so we made it function because we didn't know any better.
Lieutenant Parrish, can you talk about from when we opened, when you remember Southern Precinct, to the change of when you opened the new Southern Precinct?
Yeah, when I first started, the headquarters was the only police station. Roll calls were held there. Our dispatchers were out of there. They were actually part of the sheriff's office.
And you're talking about at 45 South
45
Main,
South
right?
Main
That
Street,
main
yes.
headquarters building.
That main headquarters. That's the only one. And then, as you said, in 2011, 2012 was when Southern opened up.
Yeah, the new one.
The new one, yeah.
Anybody work out of the Northern Precinct?
I did for a little while.
Which we're talking about, one, Southern used to be a 7-Eleven and Northern was a
Grocery store.
grocery store.
Yeah, I grew up in that part of the county, so I remember that being a grocery store. I was the captain of that precinct for a period of time. I was also the captain at the old Southern Precinct, and then I was the bureau commander when the new precinct opened, Southern Precinct. But I have not been up since to see the remodel of the new of the Northern yet, but I understand it looks pretty nice.
Looks very nice, yes. What do you look back and think you would like to go back to maybe the 80s when Major Verzi was first policing? Is there something about that time that you think would have been good to be a police officer on the road during that time for any particular reason?
I couldn't grow a mustache like they wore back then. So,
Actually, you weren't allowed to have any facial hair when I was
see,
yeah.
all different, all changes. It was a very different style of policing, and I think there was good change. It was a lot of change for the better. The way that we would interact with people, the things that we just didn't understand about mental health and how to cope with people and people in crisis and officers dealing with things that they experienced while they were at work. It was a very different era, but they did a phenomenal job back then with what they had to work with and the knowledge that they had at the time and the tools and the equipment that they had at the time. So,
well, so we talked about mustaches kind of as a joke, but just really you think about how uniform appearance has changed, what uniform standards have changed. I remember not so long ago when the tattoo policy changed, and that was a huge change for not only our agency, but a lot of law enforcement agencies to be able to allow visible tattoos. Did you ever think you would see visible tattoos? And
They weren't allowed, obviously, for a long period of time, but I think it's a cultural thing.
Sure.
It's a hiring issue because we can't find quality candidates without tattoos. So we have to change with the times, and our uniform appearance, shaving, beards, tattoos, they all have to change with the times.
Well, our time is actually coming to a close, so I'm going to start over here and just want 2 words of final thoughts, starting with Lieutenant Underhill.
2 words of final thoughts. That's hard to condense. It's been I've had a really good career. I've had a whole lot of fun. This has been a great place to work. Our agency has been really at the forefront of technology and just being influential in the region for things that we've been able to do and bring in. Sorry, that was a lot more than
2 words.
2 words. So.
DFC Roberts.
We're always hiring.
We're always hiring.
I love it.
Fantastic.
I love it.
Major Verzi.
I can't do 2 words either.
No, you can't.
But I tell you, was a great career. I was here for 41 total years, 34 sworn, another 7 as a civilian. It is a great career, and everybody should think about it.
From the beginning to the end, it's about the friendships and the bonds that you make. These are lifelong friendships that you make. It is truly an extended family, and that's what I take away from this job.
Wonderful. Well, I want to thank all of you for taking the time to talk with us about the evolution of policing here in Harford County through our own personal histories. And thank you for spending time with us. We have lots more to share with you about who we are, what we do, and how we keep you and your family safe here in Harford County. Make sure you follow us on Facebook, X, YouTube, and Instagram for more information about our agency between episodes. Or take a look at our previous shows through our virtual academy. Until next time, for Behind the Badge, I'm Christy Hopkins.